I apologize to our audience for a slight delay, but we are now ready to go. It is 6:05, and I am calling this special meeting to order. At this time, we will take a roll call for attendance. I will call each board member's name, and if they are present, please indicate so by saying present. Director Cook is absent. Director Williams?
Present.
Director Song? Also absent. Vice President Gregory?
Present.
And I am present. Director Williams, will you lead us today in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It'd be my pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
America
to the republic
and
for
to the
which it stands,
public.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board of Directors, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a joint meeting with the Kent City Council. Welcome. So glad to see everybody here today. Thank you to those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of board meetings is for the board to conduct its business in public. Public comments are not included on the special meeting agenda. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide the items directly to safety services staff. Approaching the board during the meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and the superintendent following the meeting. I do not have the land acknowledgement. Oh, there we go, sorry. I will read our land acknowledgement, my apologies. The Kent School District Board of Directors acknowledges we reside on the traditional lands of the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, who have lived in this region since time immemorial. We honor their continued stewardship to the land, its waters, and its communities. We commit to ongoing learning, meaningful partnerships with Native communities, and uplifting the sovereignty of the Muckleshoot people. Just want to say I am so excited to be able to have City of Kent here. This is an annual event that we look forward to very much. I am Megan Margell. I'm the board president and have been able to serve the community here at Kent School District since September of 2022. And joining, we have Director Williams and Director Gregory here remotely, and we're just so happy to have the ongoing partnership. I know we have this meeting once a year, but I know that district administration and City of Kent meet quite regularly as we partner in doing so much for the community and our kids. So thank you, and I will turn this over to Superintendent Bella.
Thank you, President Margell, and I echo that. I welcome our Kent City Council, Mayor Ralph, and all of our team that's here today. For introductions, I'll allow that to happen during the presentations, but I think that would be more appropriate. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Behringer to begin our presentation this evening. Dr. Behringer.
All righty. Thank you, Superintendent Vela. We're going to do a quick little update on some Kent School District items. First, a little budget update, and then a couple other school board requested budget updates. We're going to start off with our budget update for our city council members, as well as our community and our school board members. And it's maybe power would work. Look at that. So, talking about budget, we need to start about the impact to our budget. And when we talk about budget, we talk about apportionment. When we talk about apportionment, we talk about kids. We got to talk about kids. We got to talk about birth rate. So let's talk about the birth rate. So King County birth rate right here. The last 13 years, from 2010 to 2023, you can see the impact. I think those of us that are on the city council, those on the school board, and those that are watching, have seen the data and the information, are well aware that the live birth rate in King County has been dropping, and we've seen the information, and we know that this is a reality, and we know that it's going to continue to drop over the next 10 years as well. So this is just an indication. You can see there 13.8% decrease since 2016. Of course, that impacts then our kindergarten cohorts. You look back in the 2015-16 through our 2019-20, which is our COVID year, you can see our kindergarten cohorts are right around 2,000 students. And then once COVID hit, that first kindergarten cohort's coming in 2020-21, about 1,700 students, then climbed back up into the 1,800s. And now we've hit kind of a 1,700, 1,800, it's back down to 1,600. So right now we're looking at our kindergarten cohorts being right around the high 1,600s. And that's kind of where we see our cohorts being here for the future. And that's quite a significant drop. When you go from a consistent 2,000 students in a kindergarten cohort down to the 1,600s, that starts to impact your overall student enrollment in the district. And that wave of student cohorts goes through your system. That has an impact over time. And of course, that has an impact on your apportionment and an impact on your budget overall. Here's your enrollment projections. These are your actuals are in orange. 2019, obviously that year COVID hit in March of 2020. And then those subsequent years after COVID. And then our expected enrollment for 25-26 was 24,222 or 24,222. As you may have heard, our enrollment as of October 1st in 2025 this year was about 792 students less. That definitely impacted our revenue. And so we needed to adjust our revenue and our budget in October of 2025 this year and account for that. We then also readjusted our future projections for student enrollment a little bit more conservatively, and we have projected a decrease in student enrollment moving forward in the Kent School District, as you can see there in 26-27 through 28-29. Just a little information here of where our revenue comes from. You've got state general purpose, about 55% or $288 million from our state general purpose. Local tax, again, thank you to our taxpayers and voters, $77 million, roughly 15% of our entire budget. State special purpose, $117 million, 22%. Federal special purpose, $34 million, 6%. And then, of course, local non-tax and other sources. Our expenditures, of course, majority, 82%, are salaries and benefits. Not a surprise, that's very common for a majority of not only school districts, but organizations as well. $439 million, roughly 82%. And then we've got $73 million, 13% in purchase services, and then we've got 4% in materials and supplies, and a little bit in travel and capital outlay. So we talk about general fund. Our school district, our board has a policy 60-22 that requires a minimum unassigned ending fund balance of 5% of a prior year's expenditures. So that's that bottom line down there you see, where in 2021 it was at 10.9%. So the expectation is, and the requirement is 5% to be at that line. So as we're working from year to year, we need to maintain that minimum 5% fund balance. So as you will see in the next couple of slides, the revenues are not matching the expenditures, as in many school districts as well as organizations. Our expenditures are outpacing our revenues. So it's something that we are having to address, because as time is going on, we are needing to address the fact that our expenditures are increasing at a much higher rate, roughly 7.2% on average, whereas our revenues are only increasing at 5.3%, so roughly a 1.9% difference annually. This slide shows you what our taxpayers support through our EP&O, or Educational Programs and Operations Levy, and other local revenues cover. So the state does not fully fund education. This is not new. So we rely heavily on our taxpayers and our community to help support funding education. And that even doesn't fully fund education. Our EP&O levy, as it states there, $77.1 million, covers a chunk, about 77% of the $110.8 million that we are underfunded by the state. So if you look at those numbers up there, our over formula, so the state funds us roughly $202 million, but yet we spend $267 million when it comes to paying for our employees. So that's a problem. Special education, underfunded there by $25.5 million. Materials and supplies, operating costs, underfunded by $10 million. Transportation and other. So again, our local levy taxes and our reliance on our community is so important. And again, we truly appreciate our community continuing to support the school district and our levy to support our schools, or we would not be in the position that we are in to be able to fund what we do fund. And again, we are going out for another levy to renew our levy in February of 2027. Because our EP&O levy is set to expire in December of 2027, which allows us to collect levy dollars in 2028. Yep. What's that?
What's in the bucket? We got others.
Oh, the other bucket. I don't have my finance guy with me. I can't tell you off the top of my head. Here's some forecast assumptions. This includes oops, we must have lost somebody. Oh, Teresa's there.
She's here.
We didn't lose her. She joined us. Sorry. Okay. Some of our assumptions that we use when we're calculating our projections, obviously our enrollments, we look at our IPD, which is our COLA, and we calculate that. We calculate our class size because that has an impact. The step increases, all of our labor groups have, or most of our labor groups have increases in steps or columns depending on their bargained agreements. And so we have to calculate that into consideration. That's about 1.25% across the board. It also shows then where all of our labor groups, where they are in their contract negotiations, when their negotiations are open, how much their increases are in any given year. So we calculate all that out. One thing to note in this particular slide is that from going into next year, 26-27, it is a $16 million increase, just salaries and benefits alone. That's a $16 million increase. So you think about the expenditures and the revenue pieces and how they're outpacing. That's the piece that we have to account for. So unfortunately, when you're in that situation, and we are obligated and we want to continue to pay all of our labor groups what they deserve and what they are contracted to be paid, we might just be paying a little bit less of them because $16 million, when where that gap is that big, we're in a tough spot. Revised general fund forecast. So at the beginning of this year, as I stated, we were 792 students short. That had an impact. We had to adjust our adopted budget from June. When the board adopted our budget in June, we had to readjust that in October when our students didn't show up. That had a huge impact. We made an adjustment not only at the district level by making some reductions at the district level this year. We also had to dip into our fund balance and then adopt or readjust our budget for this year. If we do nothing moving forward into next year for the next 3 years, by 28-29, we'll be a negative $92.1 million and a negative 15.3 ending fund balance. And obviously that's in violation of policy 6022. We cannot do that. So we need to fix that. And so what we're doing is we are making budget reductions. So part of our budget reductions, as we've been working through this through the fall and into the spring, is we need to reduce $30.5 million through a number of different ways. And we're working through that process right now and have been working through the process for the last several months. So $30.5 million reductions in 26-27, followed by $9.5 million in reductions in 27 and 28, 28 and 29, which allows us to maintain the 5% fund balance as required by 6022 moving forward. Just some really quick engagements. We spent time all through the fall talking to our labor partners and our labor leaders, meeting specifically with our teachers associations, leaders, and a WA financial person, meeting with our principals association and their leadership group, meeting with our leaders as a whole within the district. Community meetings were held. Student groups, conversations, parent advisory, student advisory groups, community chats, sharing the information, and then, of course, keeping our board abreast through the entire conversation and process through work sessions and our retreats in January. And finally, some takeaways. When you're working with assumptions and projections, things are likely to change as we get more information as time goes on. As each month closes, we have more information, things become more clear. So we're always looking at those pieces. We're always looking at our enrollment numbers every single month to see if we're on track to where we believe we're going to be ending the school year, because that will impact our projections. State funding, as you know, legislative session ended March 13th. It was not a good legislative session for educators and pretty much anybody at all, anywhere. So that was a huge impact. Education was hit probably pretty much about a $95 million reduction in education funding for the next biennium, and the state's already anticipating a $2 billion shortfall for the next biennium. So things are not looking good for anyone, not just education, but everyone. So things are going to get tight all the way around, and I think we're going to need to be aware and prepared for that. Federal funds, I think everything's just, we just have to be prepared for anything. I don't think anything's really clear and 100% guaranteed at any given time right now federally. Like I said, EP&O levy's coming up, so that'll be extremely important. The structural deficit again, if we don't do what we need to do at 30.5 million and 9.5 million in the subsequent years, we'll drain the fund balance and we'll be in violation of not only the policy, but we'll fall into binding conditions and we'll fall under state control in that way. We don't want to do that either. And we shouldn't do that. We have ways to be able to maintain that policy. Yeah, and just for people's information, it takes about $47 million a month to run the district. That's our burn rate, and 5% is only about 2.5 weeks of operating costs. So we don't even have a fund balance that covers a full month's worth of operating costs. So that's a quick budget update, and we got a couple other little additional topics. And so I'll just hit these pieces, and we'll have some brief conversation, and we'll just keep moving through the piece here. So the first topic here is just KSD, Kent Police Department, or the City of Kent, immigration-related matters, and this was brought up by a board member, and it was more around the idea of do we communicate and how do we communicate and work with the City of Kent in and around immigration things. And our process is that if there are any concerns around ICE or immigration, that if it's brought to my attention, because I am the sole receiver of information for the school district, I am the district representative, I'm the receiver of any calls or information from schools around ICE. I work very closely with Assistant Director of Safety Services, Tim Kovich, who works then very closely with our school resource officers, who are also KPD officers. And then they work together to support one another if they have any information or any knowledge of things. And if they have a need at that level to contact anyone within the Kent Police Department outside of their own knowledge base, then they would do that at that level when it comes to immigration. So that's kind of the process there. We, immigration-wise, we've been working on updating, and we have updated our immigration, our stance and our process for the school district. The school district has, we met with Covington Indivisible a couple weeks ago, and we're working on a couple other things to make some adjustments at the school district site for supporting our school buildings wise. But as far as our relationship with City of Kent and KPD, we've always felt that they've been responsive anytime that we've needed to call them or ask questions, or just needed them to know that we've heard something from someone in our community. So it's never been a concern of ours. I don't know, Tim, if you want to add to that at all, in your experience, since usually I contact you and you talk to them.
That's correct. And I believe we've been following and using information that the mayor has been putting out along with Chief Padilla, I think since last January of 2025 with an amazing YouTube video. That was really helpful. We've used that to share with the families out there also, and they bring information to us as Mr. Behringer has said. Photographs, concerns, things like that. We use our school resource officers to help us verify if there's something in the area, just to calm some of the anxiety. There's been a few reports, and all of them has been false that have been reported. Photographs of vehicles, people in the area. Sometimes it was like DOC that was working nearby. So we help share that, and we work with the families too. Hey, give us a call. We'll help verify this information, and we work as a team together, and we've been doing that for years on other things, but recently on this. So no, it's been a great partnership.
The other piece I wanted to add too, I forgot that when I met with Covington Indivisible, I actually met with the lead of Kent Indivisible as well. They were all in the same room at the same time. So we're all in the same space. Yeah, I guess, I don't know if there's any questions about that piece.
If I,
Yeah.
Overall, I'm just curious, do the family within the school from immigration, do they feel safe? Are they concerned? Or what are you hearing around that?
Now, a lot of the principals from schools could share a lot of a more detailed level, but by the time they give the information to us, there is some anxiety, but there's been a lot of reduced anxiety once we've gone through this process, when we've communicated with them at that, and that kind of is then shared through that principal out to those families. They gain a better knowledge base of that, and they feel that they can do something or at least report.
Okay,
So it's been better, yeah.
thank you.
And Bill, just to that point, when we know more, we can do more. So when we find out that, a school reaches out and said, hey, do you have any more of the Know Your Rights cards? Like last week, we had a couple of schools reach out and said, hey, I wish we had more Know Your Rights cards. I reached out to Print Services, and they sent out to all of our schools, hey, you can order more of them right here. And so that went out to all of our schools so they could order more Know Your Rights cards for our staff. And if any parents needed them as well, they could access those pieces as well. So just trying to create those pieces to kind of to calm the anxiety, because we know that that's a thing, and we want to be responsive, so.
I also wanted to just share with the council members and Mayor Ralph, I shared with Mayor Ralph, since 2016, been partnering with the city of Kent and Covington. When this administration was the first administration, we had some of the same issues. They've just been increasing, as we know, and I couldn't be more proud of the team and the relationship we've built. As Tim mentioned, we have a good process, something in place, and our partnership allows us to track down some of that anxiety when it doesn't exist. And I think that's really critical, that our partnership is about making sure that we follow up on things and we let folks know whether it's accurate information or not. So just a shout out to the team.
Dr. Barron, I got a question. Could you, tell us whether or not, are you having? Okay, are we having, is KSD, are we having communication? Are we having communication?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, is KSD, because we already talked with KPD and the city of Kent, but is KSD, are we having communications with DHS and ICE? Are there any communications going on right now so far about the status of students in our schools?
Is the Kent School District like specifically talking to DHS
Yes.
and ICE? No,
Right.
we are not talking to ICE, from the district. No, we're not
Okay,
doing
or
that.
DHS?
DHS?
Yeah.
Only if we have families that are reaching out to us and we need to make connections, and we're doing that through our student family support services.
Okay.
Yep.
We have, Councilmember Wood, been working with our Attorney General's office in getting the just-in-time information as it relates to legal cases and that. And so some of that information, we have a portal that gives us information about what are the latest updates in terms of news. So we feel good about that piece in just helping us with decision-making that we have to make.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Since we hold graduation down at the Shower Center, and it's such a big pinnacle point for so many of our families, what can we do to partner with KPD and Kent City to protect our families from being picked up if they choose to attend graduation?
Thanks. Pat Fitzpatrick, I'm the Chief Admin Officer for the City of Kent. So just like an average citizen, police officers are not permitted to interfere with a federal enforcement agency. It's a federal offense, which carries serious consequences. So with that backdrop, I'll have you know that Kent is the only city that has complied with recent House Bill 2015, which allows us to hire more police officers through state funding, or through authority through the state. And the reason we're in full compliance is the reason we are qualified is that we are in full compliance with the Keep Washington Working Act. That's the same act that you guys have to work with. So, the federal government's the federal government, and they are an agency that is fully in charge of immigration. And the cities in the state of Washington or in the country, we don't have any authority in the field of immigration. So, I would just say that we're there as a support for the school district, but we are not going to put our officers in the position of being ordered to violate a federal offense. We can't do that. So we do share information. We keep up to date on information, and we do our best to keep people informed, and that's what our role is. Yep.
One further, so Showware also has policy and protocol around this, so they're in full alignment with where the city is and where the school district is, so that is also that other layer of protection or policy at Showware Center. So we've had this question come up for other events, and the answer is that they're on the same page.
Yeah, and I can share that we have fully coordinated those efforts for our last graduation without sharing what they are, because that's important as well. We're in full cooperation with the Showware and our city partners.
Yeah, we just actually had this same conversation for the Kent International Festival last week. So, yeah, I appreciate the question.
If I may.
Yeah.
A little off topic, but similar. We had a number of student-led protests recently, and just the response I received from many members of our community and people participating. Just the partnership with Kent PD was well-received, and people were just very impressed at the respect for the students for being able to demonstrate their rights and also keeping peace and order when it needed to be. So great comments that we saw coming to the district about KPD.
That's great. The last piece there was brought up about the coordination and communication around emergency preparedness and things like that, specifically around the flooding that happened in December and around the communication and around planning and things like that. And I wanted just to share around daily communication. I know that Mayor Ralph and myself were texting almost every single morning about updates and things like that. Public Works was communicating back and forth with our team as well up here. I know the operations team, we're talking about the evacuation plans and transportation plans and things like that. So just so you know, there's more detail to it, and I'll have Tim speak to this as well. But there was communication multiple times every single day while the flooding was going on, because not only was the city of Kent and their public works team working 24/7 shifts around the clock. We had our teams driving early mornings to check and see around our school areas and see the safety pieces there, and thinking about whether or not it was safe to be able to go to school, and understanding about the levee and where the Green River was in proximity to our valley schools. But we were getting updates too from the emergency response teams, as Tim was in communication with the emergency response teams, which was working closely with Public Works and the emergency response team from the city. So there were a lot of conversations going on and a lot of communication every single day through that entire process. And I just wanted to share that piece, and of course I'll allow Tim to talk a little bit more about that, and of course the mayor and Pat as well. But it was something that we took seriously. I know that the mayor and Pat and the Public Works team and everybody were probably not asleep. They were not sleeping at all. So it was a big deal, and it was a huge impact on the city. And if you were able to attend the State of the City that Mayor Ralph put on last week, or able to go watch the video, that was a big shout out that she gave and awarded the entire Public Works team, you know, the recognition that they deserved for the amount of work that they did in protecting not only the city of Kent, but the impact on Renton and Auburn as well. So,
like to return the shout out there. So as we were in the process of developing things like evacuation plans, and should something worse happen in the valley, needing a place to shelter, 100% coordination with the school district and looking at what those opportunities were. Was during Christmas break, so that the timing was good, but as we were trying to look at those long-term plans, if it wouldn't have been the collaboration with the school district, we would not have been able to develop what we were very confident in as a plan that would have allowed us to evacuate the valley and have a safe place for families to go. As we were going through the inventory, our senior center's in downtown, the Kent Commons is in downtown, Shower Center is in downtown. So while we would be able to use that maybe as a processing place, if we needed a place for the Red Cross to come in and set up cots and provide meals, the school district absolutely jumped in and said, you know, we're here to partner. So really grateful for that.
Hindsight being 2020, what can we do differently? How can we partner better? What are the things that we can do differently if another natural disaster hits? Because flooding is now becoming more common. The levee did break. It's now been fixed, but it can happen again. Is there anything we can be doing as a school district and with the city to partner more effectively? Is there something that we should be doing now that we've been through this? What can we do differently?
I think for us, and we have had this conversation with our partners, both at the county and the state level, it's really about sources of information. So the biggest issue that we had early on was when the county and the National Weather Service issued the flash flood evacuate now. And so the elementary schools in the valley, rightfully so, heard that information, and it created a lot of panic, and it created a lot of unnecessary panic. There was not going to be a flash flood. So yes, the levee in Tukwila did breach. There's a whole long story behind that, but it was not going to flash flood out Neely O'Brien or Kent Elementary. That was not the reality. So as a city, we have had conversations with both the county and our federal partners around what does communication look like. And if you watch some of the things that as a city we started to put out, we really tried to direct people to the city as the information source. And so I think going forward, it's that reminder that there are multiple levels of organizations communicating, but I am confident in saying that as a city, we were putting out the most timely and accurate information because, as Dr. Behringer said, our crews were on the ground from days before the flooding started all the way through the event. So I understand very much the importance of getting information out to people in a timely manner, but in some of these cases, because that information wasn't fully accurate, not intentionally so, we had situations where the panic that was caused was more dangerous than the flooding ever would have been. And so really that message and sharing that message out to families, look to the city and the district as the source of information.
I just want to give kudos to your comms department. I work in the city of Auburn, and I consistently would go to Kent City to check and see during the flooding, like what's going on, where do I need to be watching, et cetera, et cetera. And also, they're hilarious. So, yeah, mad props to your comms department.
Thank you.
Tim, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, that worked out really well when it comes to the communication that was coming from the city. Because of our partnership, we have that direct line. We were listening to all of the law enforcement and the city public works being deployed to the areas, so we were getting that real-time information as was happening. It was difficult, as explained, to then share that from, I'm a school district employee, I have the right information, but you're not like an engineer, you don't know all these things going on out there. No, we're working with them. You're good, you're in a good, safe place. And so that's always going on behind the scenes. We have that daily, so it does help, and it works really well. When it comes to the emergency plannings, those are annual updates that we do at all of our schools. Every school does this at the beginning of the fall, and then we drill with all different types of emergencies throughout the year to meet the state requirements. But these plans, locations, evacuation locations, routes, they're all vetted through Kent PD and through the city to see, can we even facilitate that? Can we do that? And in these emergency management locations, I've seen the boards hanging on the wall that have every single school name on it so that they can work with us directly and they can find one funnel point through the city to get the information that they need that represents all of Kent School District, not just the one school or something like that. And so there is a background plan for that communication, and it's just down the road. We can just get there really fast, but it is pretty impressive to see the whole thing working, and they're thinking of us, so it's good.
Thanks, Tim. Any other questions? Great. I'd like to turn it back over to Israel.
Thank you, Dr. Behringer. I think now I'd like to really, all those are important pieces and topics that we've done previously and have been doing for quite some time. So again, a shout out to our Mayor Ralph and the City Council and all the team. But I've been looking forward to this presentation for a while because I had an opportunity to talk to Bill prior to our time together today, and we were reminiscing on when we started this, and Carol knows this, but we've come a long way, and we should be proud as a school district of the work we've done together. I think it's a true testament to what can happen for our kids, right? When we don't lose focus, even when we have a fiscal challenge that you saw earlier, we stayed focused. And so I'm so excited now. I'm going to turn it over to Carol to get us started, and she and Bill will take us the rest of the evening. Thank you, Carol.
All right, well, thank you. First of all, good evening, and thank you all so much for making time to engage with Bill and me around our awesome workforce development partnership. I'm going to take you all on a small or brief contextual journey, if you will, from January 2022 to now. So in January 2022, COVID was here. And I was appointed to arrive at the Kent School District as Executive Director of Partnerships, the best position in the district. This move created an expanded opportunity for me to engage with our awesome and wonderful City of Kent partners, as well as other stakeholders who are all eager to strengthen their relationships with the Kent School District and to help us successfully prepare all of our kids for their futures. In the spring of 2023, and after attending many local and regional partnership gatherings, and I'll just call them listening sessions, I was, just wanting to kind of hear from them, what worked well for them with our partnership, what didn't work well, what are some recommended changes to make. I'm pleased and overjoyed to share that we agreed to formally partner around the spring of 2023 to create a plan to guide our shared future investments and activities regarding career readiness and workforce development. With that shared, Bill and Michelle was leading some of the work alongside, some of our Kent School District CTE and I would say STEAM and Science coordinator at the time. And the reality is we joined together, discussed what we needed to move forward collaboratively together, and we hired a consultant, Kinetic West, which is well known in the state, who also uses them as a consultant. And really, Kinetic West came in to complete what we call a career-connected STEM and CTE landscape analysis. And part of that analysis was to determine our current state regarding what programs that we had and didn't have and its alignment with the labor market value, et cetera. It also involved voices from many stakeholders. All 4,000 Kent School District staff received an opportunity to give input at the time, as well as double-digit industry employers, as well as we were able to capture student voice and community partnership voice as well, and any emerging or potential partners that we had teed up in our pipeline. This also included not only capturing the voices of the different partners, we also took a strategic look at the different types of partners we had. And we actually had communications with them around their capacity to expand their work with us if they had the opportunity to do so. And then finally, we were able to establish a joint vision that clearly captured where we were going in this district and as a partner, what we will be doing and what we won't be doing. And then we also were able to talk about where should we begin and what investments we would need to sustain and continue this work with our students. So with that shared, it's a great time to tell you that you have a piece of paper in front of you that says Kent's Strategic Vision for Advancing STEM, okay? And in this paper, what I'm going to do is kind of bird walk you through the progress that's been made this far and what's to come, and then next steps. And then Bill will certainly join in as I'm moving closer towards the end of the conversation. So as you can see, we jointly actually agreed that the Kent School District, the City of Kent, the community and industry partners will collaborate to provide Kent students high-quality, applied, and engaging STEM education at every grade level. This will ensure that each student is equipped for post-high school STEM pathways in the region and beyond that lead to living wage careers in a thriving community. And I want to note, when I say post-high school STEM pathways, that includes pathways to higher education or colleges, the military, entrepreneurship, as well as careers, okay? So, again, we're gonna go over some progress updates and next steps. So as you can see, there are a number of strategic priorities noted, and if you flip the paper over on the back, you'll see them all laid out. There are 2 system building strategies, and you'll see the remaining are programmatic strategies. So I'm gonna walk you through what we've accomplished together in each one. So as we take a look at the partnership management communications slide, I know there's a lot of writing on there, but I am pleased to share that if you see a check mark next to a task, that means we've completed that task. That doesn't mean the task is perfect. We could still be tweaking it. But I do want to emphasize the check mark on number 2 on the left side. It says develop a menu of opportunities for employers and organizations to engage with students. And I am pleased to share that we have a number of on-site and off-site a menu of choices to engage. And that includes worksite tours where we're taking our students off our school premises, out of our walls and beyond, and taking them into the community inside of different industry workplaces to engage and oftentimes eat lunch alongside them. In addition, there's opportunities to do guest speaking, and that occurs at this juncture in hybrid format, all virtual format, and or in-person format. And while that is available for all K-12, all of our schools K-12, there is an emphasis on the grade 11 high school and beyond plan where we do provide explicit supports in those 4 pathways I just mentioned to you in all of our high schools. In addition, we have career fairs that occur on and off-site that our kids engage in, and you'll hear a little bit more and see a little bit of that actually to come. We can also engage in terms of job shadows, internships, pre-apprenticeships, and apprenticeships. Again, you'll see some of that as I stroll through these slides. The other thing I want to definitely note is that inside of the feedback we receive from our community, there was a clear through line in the need for them to access our students and also our staff. And so with that shared, Nick and I, and Nick is actually is the person we hired to be doing a lot of this partnership management work and to support this joint vision. I want to share that we have done a lot of work in narrowing down what type of metrics we need, not just for our partnership in the aerospace and space industry, but as you can see in the report, we also are looking at expanding our information technology, our healthcare, advanced manufacturing as well, and any apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships and programs that come along with that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. In addition, we do have a lot of networking going on with our partners, and we are in the process of launching a public-facing way of communicating, at least with our secondary 7th through 12th grades, through our CTE department. It's a rather large department with at least 170 people in it, and you'll see some of the work that they're doing shortly. We've also found out a way, and Nick has been pretty good with developing surveys to gather feedback from everyone who comes on site that we help support if he helps supports their land there. Be it K-12 or otherwise. Also, he gathered all the feedback from the October 30th Expo, which you'll see some of it up here, at least in the student voice format. So all that to say is we're very pleased with the progress that is being made. And as you can see, Nick is our team and CT strategic support specialist. Again, I want to kind of emphasize a little bit around the Speakers Bureau in that it allows really a three-way conversation, and you'll see this like third from the bottom, in that now we've teed up over 600 partners in different people, and there's multiple people in one organization. And we have a calendar where they can see all of our CTE events and activities, and we typically schedule over 180, at least field trips and activities. And then we can share calendars together. They can see if it's still open for them to participate. And there's also a two-way side where they can request to come in, and we'll figure out when is the great context for them to step into our classrooms when they're covering certain units. And we could integrate that knowledge depth inside of that seamlessly so that it makes sense for kids. And so he is doing some data tracking. He's capturing a lot. And I know that Bill and Michelle receives a monthly newsletter just tailored for the work that we do together. You all have graciously found a way to provide seed funding, and we've grown that, those efforts using our own funding. And so you'll see some more of that. And I'm also proud to say that we are growing relationships with our awesome King County community in ways, I would say, that I'm not sure if any district is in this state. And it is actually overwhelming. It's definitely time-consuming in a good way. It's a great problem to have and a great space to be in as a Kent School District. So moving further along, in terms of the industry guest speaker pieces, let's see here. I will say that this week we began to roll out accounts to our aerospace and space industry in a small pilot. I think we had our first gathering probably yesterday to see how, what their impression is of it. The good news is that we've definitely made some progress. We're going to take a step back and we need to tidy up some things. We also had the vendor in the space. And so we're engaging in meetings, and we're going to definitely tidy it up, and then we're going to expand it to all the aerospace and space groups. Not only, that also includes the C-suite CEOs that were at the expo, as well as the colleges that were there, and all the intermediary training partners that was there. So that will be rolling out parallel to us rolling out the same thing to our internal CTE staff. All right, so I know that I mentioned a lot about the Aerospace and Advanced Manufacturing Expo. This was an ask from the Aerospace and Space Roundtable that I have the pleasure of sitting on. And I had to pause, and I know some of you've seen the videos. They're awesome. You all did a great job with that, the City of Kent. And then, but this is the first time, I would say, in my 27 years, and I've been an administrator at all levels, including the Hinton College, that I'm seeing, well, it's gonna be on the next slide, the feedback from the students. First of all, you can see that most students really thought that that experience that they engaged in, their hands-on experience, was excellent and good and okay. Also, we asked students on the survey about the likelihood that they would explore aerospace and manufacturing careers. Really an area that's really is not well known, in my opinion, in this district, and there is an information gap, and I can elaborate on that. It's an adult information gap. So if the adults don't know about the multi-billion-dollar landscape in aerospace and space just down the hill in the valley, then certainly the kids wouldn't know unless they have parents probably working in that. But that is something we have become aware of, and we own, and we will close that gap. So this is the first time I've seen students check that when you look at the pathways after they graduate, that they are looking more towards careers rather than higher ed, okay? And so I figured I needed to definitely capture that because with all the student voice surveys I've been looking at, the kids may think they know what they want to do going into these experiences, But by the time they come out and we ask them about their experiences, they've done a full tilt, which tells me they're pretty much open to anything, right? So moving on, I want to thank John Rismiller. He's not here today. He's our assistant STEAM coordinator for the district, or director for the district. And he has done a wonderful job with creating and gathering and collaborating with our teachers K-12 for after-school STEM clubs and challenges. And so you should know that in December 2024, when we reached out to the school buildings, we had a lot of interest expressed from teachers to get engaged in that. But I am pleased to say that at this time, we have 16 teachers across 12 of our schools, elementary to high, currently running after-school STEM clubs. And when I counted up the number of students enrolled in these clubs, is 200 plus students. And so what that tells me is we now have the ball rolling in terms of at least career awareness and some exploration going on, so that the kids will be well positioned by the time they get way more supports in grade 7 through 12 with the CTE staff to know what kind of direction they want to lean more into. And with that shared, I would say I have redefined and communicated what I consider post-secondary. I really consider that to be at least starting in 11th grade, right? In some instances, you'll see as we move along, we're going to roll out some stuff coming up soon in the 9th grade areas too. So again, as you can see, these are the current schools participating this year. And if you see the number 2, that means that school has 2 after-school STEM clubs. I would say, if looking at Carriage Crest, they have a Lego robotics club for 4th and 5th graders, as well as 2nd and 3rd graders. If I took a look at River Ridge, they have the WAMPS After-School Science Club. Sawyer Wood has maker spaces, grades 2 and 3 going on. Kent Meridian has a coding club going on. Meridian Middle has an engineering club, grades 6 to 8 going on, and so on. There's even some underwater robotics clubs. So really, the ball is rolling, and he's doing a great job with that, and he's looking forward to sustaining that. I will say we're happen to be in the midst of 4 grant windows right now, so I was literally working on grants probably 30 to 40 minutes until we open this, because some are due this week. But in addition, what you'll see is we're going to talk about some of the STEM lessons in STEM professional development that John Rismiller is also leading. And then I want to note in red the middle school CTE electives. You're not going to see a slide on the middle school CTE electives, but I can tell you that within the last 2.5 or so months, we have coordinated communications across grades 7 through 12 with principals and some teachers and others on making sure that we have a through line with what we offer from middle to high and high to middle, to make sure that if we're currently offering classes that no longer holds long-term value, we need to pause it and put it to sleep. And then we need to reactivate some of those classes that we sunset that we know now carries labor market value. And then we need to keep expanding on what's working well. And then we need to throw some new stuff up in there, right? And when I say new, we don't have a whole lot of industry, the 4 areas I talked to you about, in terms of healthcare, information technology, advanced manufacturing, those types of things. And so, but I am pleased to share that next year, just at the middle school level, we're adding 27 new CTE courses. So, and we're doing some new things. We're bringing back the medical pathways at the high school at Kent Lake. We're in the final stages of negotiations with Plover Park Tech Academy. I'm wrapping up a cybersecurity grant with Green River, which I hope is a go, and we pulled in IBM and Puget Sound ESD, the city of Kent, made some notes in conversation sidebar with Microsoft and Amazon, for which I'll follow up with. But let me stay focused and get into the STEM lessons. I can go down rabbit holes all day. So John has, again, done a fabulous job with purchasing 3rd to 5th grade science STEM kits, and from Project Lead the Way. And he has also provided professional development to go along with that to those teachers. And so, and he plans on continuing that work. Working with Project Lead the Way is work that they were already doing, and so we're just seed funding and expanding the scope of that work. Okay, and so it still is our mission to ensure that all kids have access to STEM at all of our grade levels. As it pertains to the actual training of the staff, 56 teachers thus far has, across 18 elementary schools, have been trained since October 2024 and counting. He has another group coming up for training in June. And so in the long term, for sustainability, he's thinking that 2 to 3 Project Lead the Way KSD teachers will be trained in-house to train others as we continue to move along. And so we're moving along, getting into the Core Plus high school career-connected learning section. I gotta say, not that the other sections were exciting, and you'll find that I'm always overjoyed about things. This is like way cool. And so some of you who had the opportunity to participate in the League of Innovative Schools last week, you know, some of the work that Dr. Rebecca Kim led, had the opportunity to see this in the flesh. And so I'm gonna talk about the Core Plus, and I want you to know that when I say career-connected learning experiences, I want you to think about a spectrum of career awareness, career exploration, career preparation, and actual career launch, okay? So I am pleased to share, I think the keynote in this particular one is the 4th check down on the left side. We launched for the first time, probably in history, a Core Plus aerospace program this year at Kent Meridian High School. And Boeing supported, currently and still supports the professional development around that with the staff that's doing that work. And they also came up and looked at all of our equipment, told us what we needed to have and what we didn't need to have, et cetera. By law, we have to make sure that our equipment is aligned with entry-level industry standards. And so while I did not make it to that tour last week to see it in the live and flesh, I heard things about it before we even got ready to discuss the moderator panel. And so, but I will make my way over there. But as you know, I also get so excited that I tend to mingle in things that goes beyond what's promised. And so coming up this fall, we're gonna launch a Core Plus construction program. It's also gonna be at Kent Meridian. And I know what you're thinking, and we can talk about that later. But we're excited about that. And last week, there were 2 funders that came forward and says, we want to put some money on this program. And so I'll talk about that later because I do expect donations to come forward with that in terms of the tools and equipment in the thousands of dollars. So I'm pleased to share that. And at some point, and you'll see because we're planning, we have a 4-year plan for which you are aware of. We plan on making sure, for equity reasons, that other kids in the high school also have access to Core Plus, starting the year after that, okay? All right, moving on to the career-connected learning experiences. Let's see here. For the most part, I would say that you're going to see some of this, and so I'm gonna click through that. You should know that, again, I said early on, that we plan about 180 field trips along, let alone other activities. And then we also always leave a buffer because something's always popping. People are calling every week and I'm sorry, that's slang. They want us to engage. And so sometimes we just have to, even though we have the best laid out plans, we have to kind of slide in some of these other things. So what you see is Green River gives me a call and say, Carol, I have, you know, someone who has an awesome dental program. They want, even though we don't offer this track at Green River, I know you'll have, you know, something you can do and partner. So all that to say is we did bring in this dental program and we merged schools together. And so they were making like fake gums and stuff like a dental, like casting teeth. They were doing some cool stuff as if they were in a lab. But between the fall, this September and January, we've already organized approximately 70 field trips and school events that supported 1,850 middle and high school students thus far and counting, because we have a ways to go through the calendar year and we still have events left to do. So the key takeaways from all of this is not only are kids benefiting from increased career awareness, but some of these partnerships also include professional development just for the adults at no cost. So here are some of the activities that's transpired that we just talked about. And as you can see, 2 of them come from the Tech Expo, well, the Aerospace and Space Expo on October 30th. One is our Kentwood DECA program, which is a CTSO. Well, it's an after-school CTE club. There are some requirements that we have to make sure we hit in terms of student leadership skill development. And so, and you can see career fairs. You can see the kids in the classroom for the dental event before they went to the lab experiment, et cetera. So here is another thing that I'm excited about. Man, okay. So we were able to, with the support from the city of Kent, not Bill and Michelle's office, but Lori Guilfoy's office. Lori and I have been working together for 15 years before she even landed at the city, and she's cool, just as cool as they are. But all that to say is we are fortunate to be able to partner with Anu, who is currently going to work with all of our high school students. Right now, they're working with our academy schools. They started in the fall. And so iGrad Academy, our Transition Outreach Program, which is an exclusive school for students with special needs from 18 to 22, and Kent Virtual Academy has access to a new services at their new facility in Tukwila in the fall and in the spring. They just launched again this week. So a new comes in their vans, they pick up the kids and they take them to Tukwila, okay? And then they bring them back. So on the other hand, this past fall, iGrad, Kent Virtual Academy decided not to participate, but I made arrangements with David Radford at Kent Meridian High on an early release day to go ahead and onboard those kids. They're doing the work in that facility. But this spring, they're both are getting picked up by Anu, taken to Tukwila every week, and they come back. And so I had the luxury, so that's right now. I read all of the surveys from the students who completed the fall quarter, and I have to say, the students said they learned how to work as a team. They learned how to measure. There was a student who says, I learned how to work better with men. The kids said they did mock interviews, they learned work readiness skills, et cetera. So we're excited, and then in the summer, it's gonna open up to the remaining high schools. We're gonna have 40 slots, and again, it will be at Kent Meridian High. So we're excited about that, and even though Bill doesn't know this, I did reach out, and we plan on extending our partnership with them if they have the capacity to do so. So we're in negotiations right now. Bill.
Well. I'm just trying to tie into the COP partner program that ran that board, and you and I talked about it. Mm-hmm. How does some of the stuff that you're doing ties into that workforce where they really need people? I'm just trying to connect the dots here with that.
Well, sounds good. Sounds good. So you should know that in addition to what I'm sharing with you all tonight, there's a whole nother.
Okay.
There are other partnerships that has. This is one actually. I'm gonna let Bill start it and then I'll come in because really what is happening is we have students engaged off-site at other. Partners, and what they're doing is learning CNC machining, 4-axis, stuff I don't understand, but it looks good when I go into the manufacturing floor.
Pays good too.
Yeah, and it pays good. Yeah. And then we also have, a kids gearing up. They're going to be halfway through a 2-year degree in manufacturing engineering in our We have an aerospace manufacturing leadership academy at Skills Inc. We have 2 groups of kids down there. But that particular program, I call the cream of the crop. It's the platinum program. I can tell you why later on. But yeah, those students are not only getting college credits, 45 college credits, they're getting paid for 25 hours a week. They are also, those credits are going towards a high school diploma. And it is, they all had job offers for the summer through Blue Origin and Skills Inc. And they're doing a wonderful job. And we also have Torque Lift. But all that to say is a lot of what we're doing is kind of geared towards aerospace and space right now. But we're looking at information technology, and the aerospace companies need cybersecurity, right, for that. And to do some of the welding and machinery, the tools, they're gonna need that as well. So a great question. I would say anything you want to bring to the table and put in front of me, I figure out how we can integrate it and make it work to align with our initiatives.
And I also say I met with Jeffrey Baker on Carol's team the other week, CTE director at the Kent School District. I mean, and I took a tour. I was actually yet to be on the tour of the Core Plus training room. And, you know, talking to the instructor there and talking about for the first time. It's like first time I've heard in the time I've worked here, kids going from high school into Boeing right into that first job. So that's a big deal to me as well. And you know, there's a lot more to say, but like I just thanks Carol. Lightning speed on a lot of these things, going from 0 to 40 students, 0 to 200 students. We're going from, some of the metrics on these things were single digits, and now we're in the hundreds, and I'm excited about the momentum that's being generated. Along the front of starting with small digits, but seeing it grow. A lot of this is City of Kent kind of working with Carol and her team on sort of the seed funding component of that, and we took a little funding from the Port of Seattle that's made available to economic development at the city level. And we seeded partnerships with AJAC, it's a statewide agency that's been based in Kent for a very long time, headquartered here. And I think now we're getting through the first phases of, last year the work was kind of just exposure to the programming with instructors, with admin. And then it was formulating an MOU, talking with them about a formal partnership. And the next step is funding actually and sponsoring the first cohort of students. AJAC is an organization that used to stand for Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, but they've just become the AJAC because why? Aerospace and manufacturing is somewhat synonymous around here, but it's not exclusive. They also work with a lot of other companies that are not producing parts necessarily for airplanes. They're also doing it for rocket ship companies in town. They have training agents, relationships for a long time with Stoke and Blue Origin. So it's just the idea of having another pathway into our space industry for technicians that doesn't necessarily involve college. And so they're a great apprenticeship program, and Carol, I know you wanted to add on after that.
Oh, yeah, and we'll be nearing the end shortly.
Yeah, sure.
So in terms of AJAC, right now we're recruiting for 7 students who want to be production technicians. And it's open to juniors and seniors. And actually, it's going to start in the fall, and it's not going to be Tuesdays. We just switched it to Thursdays. But basically what's going to happen is we have a teacher at Kent Meridian High School who came from industry, and that's where a lot of our industry-based teachers are. And that teacher is going to teach students after hours, 4 hours a week, the instructional components that they need for the apprenticeship program. And then on the other 4 days a week, they will be working with an employer. So we're going to onboard employers who are agreeing to work with these kids and hire the students. And they're going to actually start working towards, they're going to be an apprenticeship. They're going to register with Written Technical College, and they will be getting dual credit again, all right? They'll be getting paid again, and they'll be able to walk away with a journey level card. We probably have a sign-in day, much like other school districts have done. We teed up all the adults at the high school level last year for this adventure to give some background information in terms of youth apprenticeship programming. And so, yeah, so we have a lot going on, and these kids are going to be working with machines, doing technical drawings, working with mills and lathes, and all those types of things I don't know much about. And they'll have certifications, OSHA 10, first aid, CPR, and anti-harassment as well. Some next steps, as we continue to take a look at being more efficient and effective in CTE and building out pathways that have through lines that will lead directly into sustainable high-wage jobs, we are finding that we have limited space, right? And so we're trying to work through that anomaly. We've even offered putting things in storage containers to clear up space inside of buildings. But at some point, to onboard these new programs, we're probably going to have to look at additional space elsewhere. We definitely need to continue to address the information gap, a gap that I know exists, and not just me, others, between the K-12 system and the industry system. We do a pretty good job with getting kids to college because the state incentivizes that through our report card metrics and through policy and procedure. But there is none, very little in place for us to send kids to industry because they can't do enrollment reporting and get funds. So it's either they're going to come out of pocket, we're going to do some type of grant together, and Bill will elaborate later, and some other things we got to get, we got to get creative to make that happen. It's also difficult for us. We love teachers, all of our teachers, but the CTE programs are really designed to bring in teachers from people from industry, and there's a shortage. And so what we're doing is training up our own teachers and flipping them over into CTE, and giving kids something, because that's better than nothing, right, in terms of exposure. And so with that shared, we have to continue to take a look at how to shore that up so that we're not cheating kids out of experiences they deserve. Also is a challenge in terms of securing sustainable resources. We're lucky right now to be well positioned to try to expand and do things, but it's strategic and it requires time, and it's going to require I'm writing coattails on the other 3 grants right now. I'm literally writing one, and so sometimes I don't have the capacity to write, but I'm going to write coattails, which means our students are going to benefit from it, and I'm going to put something in the pot. It's just that somebody else has to do most of the work up front. Okay. And then securing after-school transportation. So as you all know, as we continue to expand after-school activities, we have to expand ways for kids to get home. We are, again, I mentioned before, we have a lot of collaborations going on with our stakeholders and partnering, et cetera. Bill, do you want to comment on any of this before you get into your next slides? Because I'm passing it over.
Okay, thanks, Carol.
They probably should have gave me a time limit.
No, it's
so
okay.
go
I'll just
for it.
launch into it.
This is it.
Oh, yeah. Pause for a question before I go into things. Yeah.
Okay, Carol, just going back to going back to what you were saying about the 27 new CTE courses coming to middle schools. Mm-hmm. Awesome, I'm so excited about that. I think that's really cool. Will those be the same ones offered at each middle school?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm looking, it depends on when we collaborated with principals. They had an opportunity to look at what they currently offer, and they currently offer some of the same things and some of the different things. Some of the principals wanted more of what some of the other schools were doing. Some wanted totally something different. And so really, some of it's like a digital photography, digital video. Some of the kids wanted computer science, or let's see here, yearbook and digital media, CTE art, and all those different things. So
Okay.
It really depended on what the ask was from that school building. And sometimes I can say principals try to align their acts with the feeder schools when they feed up, like I think we have marine science at Kent Ridge, right?
Gotcha.
So I said, I wonder if they're trying to do something in that space.
Yeah.
so that the kids can move.
And then following up on that, when we get into the high school level, you talked about the new medical program coming to Kent Lake. Do we have a system where if there's a student at Kent Meridian that's interested in the program, the medical program specifically at Kent Lake, do we have a way to allow them at those, junior, senior level can they drive over and take a course at a different high school?
So yes, that is intended to be a district-wide program again. There were state law changes this summer. And so we've already had 56 kids register for that in anticipation that we were going to launch. Given the current requirements, we're probably only going to take about 40 of them because our nurses have to teach it. You have to be certified. You have to be a nurse to teach it. So that means we have 3 to 4 nurse volunteers right now to work after hours to do this work. And then we have to do, in addition to the instruction, we have to do the skills labs. And then we have to find clinical locations like nursing homes on the weekends. And so with that shared, the ratio for this work is a 1 in 10. And so for now, since we're just now starting back after COVID, because we had something in place before then, some of the seats are going to go to schools outside of the Kent Lake, but we're probably going to limit it to just seniors, because you really need to be 18 or older, or 17 turning 18. But we have enough students, we think, to just roll with seniors. Now, it's a through line because we are looking at what we currently offer, what would be a good, and so we're looking at a nurse aid program to come behind that the following year in terms of that juniors can access with no problem. But with that shared, yes, we do plan on allowing access for other schools. Okay.
I also had a question. Thank you for that presentation. It's really exciting work, and I graduated in 2014. So really, it's to see where we've come, where we're talking about implementing these things at all levels, is really exciting to me. So thank you for all the work and partnerships that have gone into that. So earlier, Dr. Behringer was presenting on the budget deficit. Does that impact the teachers that are training up to help support these programs with the staffing cuts that we're going to see?
Mm-hmm. So yes, and I would say yes, but not as much. And I'll say yes because, again, student enrollment or the funds we get is based on students being in the seats, right? So the decline in enrollment we have does impact students in the seats in CTE. CTE does have a nice sized budget, and we have some flexibility within that to utilize some of our CTE funds. We do a pretty good job with leveraging other resources as well in many ways, and that it would probably be enough flexibility to be able to continue to support that work. Oh, there will be. I'll just say that. Oh.
No worries. On the note of fiscal sustainability, I think just one of the things that kind of come back to from 2 years ago when we passed this plan, Carol used the word strategic, right? And I think hopefully what's coming across from everything that just was shared was that all of these actions, so many different tactics, so much work from the Kent School District that's been invested, the focus, the continuity of action here, it rolls up into a strategy where each one of these things builds on the other. And an action in middle school electives is also being supported by making sure there's an option for a high school student to take that next training program. The city and its role in terms of facilitating convening with the employers that we have in the aerospace industry in our valley is sort of our way of anteing in a contribution to that. We're not working with the school district in quite the same intense way with younger people, but oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sir.
I know Bill's going to get
Oh,
into
I'm sorry.
that.
I was going to segue.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, no, it's okay. I just do also want to mention that we've done a lot of work with the trades union beyond
Yes.
ANU. And I know that's also listed, well, we have some apprenticeship agreements in that area. I will say we have a rather large, we have 3 phases of agreements, but the current agreement that we have is involves 400 contractors and probably about 16 unions. And they have agreed to hire our students to do some of that work if we do construction work and they win bids. But not only that, the next group of kids would be our KSD graduate alumni. And then the next group would be their parents, and then we go by zip codes. But that's phase one, and so either this week or next week, we'll be in phase two for our 8-week summer program where they're hiring our students. And then our phase three is to onboard their curriculum with our Core Plus construction and marry them. So I do want to, I did leave that part out as part of the conversation that goes beyond. Back to you, Bill,
Yeah, sorry.
and you can close it out.
No problem. It's a good reminder to catch on that. Just on this, back to the sustainability and segue into some other things that the city can do and sort of wrap around in the larger community. But good point. And it's like the professional development, right? You heard earlier that the professional development dollars were to a program, and it was very well chosen to say, well, this is something where the teachers can then train other teachers. So it's a seed fund from the city one time, but then it's this built-in. Now we have transformed things, and it continues to build on itself. And so everything that we're talking about, even though it was one-time federal funding the city had, because it was done planfully, intentionally, built on real engagement and partnership here with the school district, we have confidence that this will continue beyond that one-time fund. And what I was going to say next was simply the attention it can attract in terms that is positive in terms of finding other funding, grants, and resources, which was the last bullet Carol had. And so back to the Kent Valley, this is the map, we like to call it now. It's just the map. This is a list of the 200-plus aerospace employers that are across our jurisdictions in this submarket. And I say 200 aerospace employers in the Kent Valley, and people go, okay. And then I put out the map, and then people take their phones out sometimes. They take pictures of it. And so it's become an engagement piece for us. And it's actually something that now when students tour, let's say the Museum of Flight, they get toured by this map. And they say, oh, these are all the places you could potentially work if you want to get involved in the aerospace industry in your area. So that's an example of engagement that can happen outside of the school, right? And it's because we are intentionally going out and doing outreach to other institutions, that we are going out and trying to create other places of engagement and exposure for young people so they can encounter it in their lives outside of school as well. And I think that's actually really important as well. And a lot of literature on economic development, economic resilience is about just social networking. And Carol said something earlier that was very important, which was the gap between the knowledge of the career base and what adults know about the careers that are available. And if you look at the number of people who have jobs in the Industrial Valley, well, in Kent alone it's 70,000. In the larger Kent Valley submarket, it's 250,000 people. If you look at how many Kent residents in Kent work in Kent, it's like 13%. So it's small numbers. So what is the likelihood that a young person within their social network, their family, their friends, are actually meeting anyone who works in the industry that is in their own town? That's why it has to be worked at. The social networking has to be worked at. If we want upward mobility through these careers, it has to be worked at intentionally, because socially, people aren't necessarily networked normally in their day-to-day life. Through years and decades and generations of zoning, we made industrial valleys separate from the lived experience of the young people in their communities. And that's not always how careers used to be. So we've, in some ways, divorced our society. We've divorced our residential area from its key industry, and that's had consequences, as you can imagine. So some of the things that we're doing on the outside in terms of just investments, we have a pilot project right now the city's funding with First Washington Robotics, and I just want to share a few notes on just the number of students. It's going to be anticipated to start in July, August of this year. It'll be a summer camp. We're expecting somewhere between 20 to 40 students. The partnership is just getting started. We think that this is going to be sort of a beginning point. The first high school team will be the Kent Ridge High School Chargers. Bringing in, sorry, I'm just reading the script there. And so the YMCA and First Washington Robotics team will be launching the summer camp. And it's just another chance to have that exposure outside of the school. And one thing when I talk with employers very often, like, what do they care about? We just did a presentation last week at the Innovation League we keep referencing. It was very interesting. It was, a question was asked of one of our panelists who was from Boeing. They said, Bill just said credentials don't matter. Is that true? They're like, Actually, yeah. If I had 2 resumes and I had someone with a lot of projects that were important and somebody had a credential, I'd choose the person with the projects. It doesn't actually count. I mean, it's not that the accreditation hurts you, but it doesn't actually get you in the door with a lot of employers anymore. What they're actually looking for is project-based learning. They want to see examples that a young person has worked and done something. And I connected it to something else, which was like more than 14 years ago. I talked to a software company head, completely different than manufacturing. I said, what kind of young person are you trying to hire? It's like, well, somebody decided to build a mechanical pig that belches fire on the weekends. I said, really? That's colorful. You know, why? It shows them shows the drive. Everything else I can teach. Everything else about coding computers I can teach. And that's the exact same refrain in a different state, separated by more than a decade and a half, I hear from manufacturing employers today in a different industry. And I just think there's been a large societal shift, and the employers are trying to send a demand signal about that. And so things like the robotics tournaments are important. Here's something that's fun, Pi Day. So Kent Station came to us, they're re-tenanting their building there. They're trying to pivot what types of programs they would have at the Kent Station. They said, we want to have more family programming. You know, some of the successful malls that we've talked to, they have like engagements for kids that do STEM programs. Who do you know? I gave a bunch of names. It just so happened the Seattle Universal Math Museum, who has had some partnerships with the school district at different schools and did programming at the library. They got some free space to trial, and they're hoping that this becomes a long-term fit. And so they're trying to create a math museum long-term at Kent Station, and they're going to try to do a capital campaign for that. Again, it's where are you going to meet young people and families? Well, you might meet them at your local mall, right? And have a little engagement. And so that's a nice example of that. STEM Paths Innovation Network, a couple schools currently. We've invested in some cash on the outside to help them do pre-development costs, and they are working on a concept right now to partner their own makerspace lab. So that's another example. And back to just sort of attracting attention. A couple good things have happened recently. One, Senator Murray's office has provided congressional directed spending. This was signed into law, $2.65 million for the Kent Valley Collaboration. Renton Technical, Green River College, the city of Kent. Some of that funding will be for career exposure. So $600,000 is decreased career exposure. It's not limited to the city of Kent and the Kent School District, but again, the idea of seed money. Anecdote I gave recently, because it was memorable for me, was I was talking to Colonel Bruner, who is the CEO of a local space startup, and he has an opinion as to how we should be spending this grant. And he said, you should really think about doing paid internships. Because right now, your event at the Career Expo recently at the Accesso Shower Center, that's wonderful. You know, there's apprenticeship programs, but he's like, let me tell you a story about a young person who drove from Massachusetts to my place of business here in Kent as a young engineer. He knocked on the door and he said, Colonel, I'm really good at this. I can help you out. They told him no. He came back, told him no. They rejected him 5 times. And now that he's been working there for a couple of years, because they finally said, all right, we'll pay you, I guess. And they let him come and work. So he was employee number 5 in this startup, and he said, if our technology pays off, you're going to be, a millionaire. Congratulations for your persistence. But generally speaking, I don't want to take a chance on a young person I don't really know getting that first job with me. I just don't know you, and I'm a little startup. And this could work for a little startup. It could work for a bigger company, 50 to 100 employees, 50 to 200 employees. The internship model is kind of broken. And at the higher education level, the state currently provides stipends for graduate students and university students to go work at Blue Origin, paid with state dollars to trial out and bring their research with them to different employers. But for the technician, not so much. And he's like, I said, so the obvious question I asked him is like, well, if there was a paid internship, would you have rejected that person 5 times? And would you have just taken the person from the other side of the country? Would you have hired locally? He's like, absolutely, first one. So he's like, seed money, $600,000. I have an idea as an employer on your employer table, paid internships. I'm going to pursue that. And I think that's a really good example of doing this kind of work with the school district opens new doors, right? Even when we're talking about scarcity and budget decrease, the partnership, the conversations, by having community with our employers is going to open new doors for funding and other things. And something else that happened just recently was a couple weeks ago, NASA opened up a new grant for a Workforce Hub Challenge grant. There'll be about 8 awards nationally. Funding, a lot of different entities were looking at it, like, it's only $500,000 a year. You can't really do a lot with that. And I understand why they say that, because education's expensive, and, well, it's supposed to serve the whole state. But they're like, that Kent Valley thing, would you like to do that? And he was like, frankly, my team's a little small too. But okay, you know what? We have good relationship with the college. We have a grant writer. Let's go figure this out. And then AJAC said, let's go for it. And then we had another call, and with Washington STEM, who Museum of Flight was having, like, hey, go look at this Kent Valley partnership thing that's going on. And they came on the call, and then we had the state of Washington on the call, and all of a sudden we had like 15 of us, and we got like 6 days left to apply the thing. And then someone from Everett Community College pops onto our team's call and goes, hi, I'm a spy from Snohomish, and we really think that we should get this grant. We're like, okay, let's just coordinate at a state level. And so we started coordinating further. But back to the budget situation. At the state level, there's supposed to be 12 different entities called, or supposed is not the right word, but there are 12 different entities called Centers of Excellence. And every sector in the state of Washington for the last decade or so has a few staff people whose job it is to go and get industry input and validation and then distribute that to the college system. They have 2 staffers, like some maritime would have a thing, aerospace and advanced manufacturing would have a thing, global trade and logistics. Those have all been cut. Those don't exist anymore. So between our partnership going out and getting the validation from the employers to higher education at the state level, there's nothing but open sky, for better or worse. So I think it kind of says how important this work is. And so we still have that collaborator on the calls, but it's a little awkward to me because it's like, now we really need this grant. We can't just dismiss this grant. This is a grant we need to continue to coordinate the workforce efforts between the school districts, the colleges, the employers. And we're one happy family with Snohomish, which is another big concentration of aerospace in the region. It's probably in the bucket there called other that have not labeled. But 35% of the state's aerospace industry is right here in our backyard, that $27 billion industry. So again, producing these foundational skills that we're talking about investing in, they have many different pathways. Carol mentioned cybersecurity. The other thing I always like to mention is when I talk to employers, they say, like, how do what's your feelings about the engineers you've hired from the local university system or colleges? They're useless. It's like I have to train them for years. It's like, well, why is that? They're just theory, and they've never even all through their high school and all through their college, they never experienced tools. They don't know how to do the technician work. I want the PhD who's also going to be a welder. I want someone who's actually built something or done something in a hand and had a project and then learned how to be an engineer, because that's the foundational thing. So if we're teaching this, I just want to point out, if a student wants to go straight into career or straight to college, what we're talking about is something that's foundational and broad. Yeah, thank you.
Question about this. Are the employers that you're speaking with willing, if we give them well-educated, well-experienced welders, are they willing to partially help fund those kids to go get their degrees and eventually a PhD?
I think that's where I'm pointing to some of these programs that already exist, right? And so there are these programs, but why are they so boutique? Why are they so niche? How do they scale? And that's the big conversation in the state. And, Carol's, weigh in on this, but I think you put your finger on one of those things, which is not enough instructors.
Carol,
Yeah, that's true, and I do want to say that we do have a partnership with Tortleft. They went through KM, all of the CEOs and higher ups, and I just asked them for their numbers. They take our seniors from Kent Meridian, an advanced welding class, 2nd semester, and they go report down there and make that manufacturing floor their classroom, and then they put an extra 2 hours a day on it for 20 hours a week. But nonetheless, we sent 6 kids down there 3 years ago. Those 6 kids are still there, and some are now opening their own businesses. Last year, we sent 7 kids down there. Those 7 kids are still there. And then we just sent 2 down this semester and counting. And other kids found out about it, and they hired 4 more that already graduated. So they kept them all, and they told them they would give them their own business. And apparently, that's coming to reality.
Yeah, I wanted to share, as a great question, having attended a couple of the roundtables where that question came up, recall, Bill and Carol and Nick, that the advanced manufacturing CEOs and those leaders that were at those sessions, when the question came up was, just give me the kids, we'll go ahead and teach them, because we need them to be hands-on, and we'll teach them the math, we'll pay them, we'll teach them what they need to know. To Bill's point, that's what they're asking for. They'll go ahead and take, and they gave an example of some of the kids that showed up and that didn't think that they knew math. And I remember that one.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're doing the work because it's hands-on. So I wanted to before I forget, because we're nearing the end of our time, before I turn it back over to President Margell to finish up with questions and facilitate that. If you didn't get excited, I don't know, something's up with you, but I know I already want another career myself, and I know where I'm going to go to make sure I get the hands-on work. But I wanted to thank Bill, Nick, and Carol for all, not only tonight, but all that you've done to this point. It was sure exciting to listen to what's happening, but I'll turn it back over to President Margell to finish up the evening by facilitating our question portion.
And yes, we have about 14 minutes for questions, and I'm going to rudely start with myself. I know, look at that, I don't normally do this. But as we move into, talking about, a lot of this is at the junior and senior level, some of these programs. I have students, and they choose their classes for high school back in middle school, and I totally appreciate that we are adding so many more CTE classes, but that career path really is starting almost in that 6th grade level, right? Of where are you going to go to? Or if you don't know, how do we get you in front of the broad breadth of options available to you? I know Skills Inc., our premier program, we should be shouting that on the top of the hills, and maybe we are, but we still don't have enough kids to fill the number of seats that they have. So how do we get that? And I know as a parent, I didn't even know all about this, and I'm here at the table. And so, where our parents only, I thought that was a great statistic, 13% actually work in Kent. How do we get the people who are probably the most influential in what classes their students choose in the path that they're going towards? Are they going to be working towards this program their junior and senior year? How do we get it? And having a career fair where parents have to go to it and even know about it doesn't always work. How do we get parents and the most influential people in our students' lives to be able to say, this is a really cool thing for you?
Maybe I'll start on that. I would go earlier than 6th grade. I'd say 3rd grade is actually, employers will think that early. I talked to a site selector, and that's a professional whose job it is to decide where to put different companies and where to relocate them. And there was a group of economic developers from the region. They asked them the question. They said, what should we be thinking about? What are we doing wrong, or what are you missing? And she replied, don't tell me about the education programs you have for the high school kids. Tell me what you're going to do, because if I'm making a decision about where to put an employer, that's going to be for 20, 30 years. That's a big move. I want to know what you're doing in the elementary school level. So that's just a good challenge to what is your mindset really. And so that's why I was highlighting earlier some of these after-school programs and the middle school work that we've invested in. And Carol's talking about John's work on that. It's actually incredibly important because part of what we noticed even during the planning way back when is that when we did the surveys, they said, what is your, would you be interested in going to a STEM program? Do you have access to one? And there was a lot of schools that didn't have access to one. So some of the seed funding here is just to help keep the doors open and have a teacher available. And it works hand in glove with some of the professional service development that we've done, we've invested in, because then the teacher's like, oh, I can run that STEM club, and I have a means and an hourly support to do so. I can do that. So that's to get at a younger level. That's part of your question. I think the other part was just on the parent front. So I brought up the Washington First slide again, is because like they're thinking, all right, wraparound supports from YMCA, but like what are the other partnerships after this with local community-based organizations? How do we get our name out there and get to more parents? And it's a conundrum for sure. It's the thing that gets talked about. I've been going to workforce development meetings 12, 14 years, aerospace industry meetings, and they every single year had a slide like, and this hasn't been solved, and they would move on. And the number one thing was the gripe of like, culturally, nobody understands this at all. And their answer has always been, come take a tour. And it's just not practical in some ways, right? And so, but they don't really know how else to articulate it, and I understand where they're coming from, because once you do the tour, you go, well, I would never have understood that with a million words until you toured me. So how do we start to like create that experience elsewhere? The Guest Speakers Bureau is another answer to that, and Carol mentioned earlier, like, plan to how to get the mentor and the young, the employee into the classroom earlier, and we're investing in some of the IT back-end stuff to help facilitate that. But there's not an easy answer. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm going to cop to something. I watch the East Coast. I'm originally from Connecticut. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm from Connecticut, I know. But they have the Groton, so like we have Bremerton here, and the nuclear subbase there. On the East Coast, they have Groton, the electric boat company goes back in Connecticut like 100+ years. They can't get enough people to build nuclear submarines anymore. So at the backstop of every single Yankees game, it says buildsubmarines.com. And then you go onto the website, because I'm watching the Yankee game, build submarines. We need build airplanes. They have a huge campaign to like compare, you know, YouTube influencer, $40,000 a year. Working on a submarine, $90,000 a year. That's the simple website message. And they just, I don't have a budget to advertise at the Mariners, but like that's the kind of omni-channel advertising that some groups are doing.
Thank you. And my only other plug is, please don't forget about transportation. After-school programs are great until you can't get a kid home.
Yeah.
And high school, like, we see this in our sports, we see this in our clubs, we see this in jobs, every single thing. So many of our kids do not have transportation. We don't have one parent working at home, one parent that can go pick them up. And a lot of our kids don't have cars. And so how do we transport our kids? It's such a barrier to doing a lot of these programs.
Yeah.
So I just have a comment, a couple of comments first. Does anybody know the average age of a worker at Boeing? Any guesses on what the average age of a Boeing worker is?
I was gonna say 57.
It's 56 and a half, so I'll give you the 57. So just so you know, that means they're retiring. So they need the pipeline, and that's what's so exciting about this. The other thing I want to tell you is when people tell me about manufacturing in the Valley, and they're like, manufacturing in the Valley, my father-in-law worked at Pacific Prop Propeller, it's PPI. Anybody know what they do? They certify the propellers on planes. They're the #1 people who do it, and they're here in this valley. They're not in Seattle. They chose to be here. They've been here for over 50 years. Company's been around a long time, and they certify prop propellers, and they build them, and they do all these things. But those jobs are here, and you don't have. My father-in-law had a living wage, had a family of 4, lived in Kent, kids went to Kent. Like you can have a livable wage with benefits, with all of these things, and still live in this community. You don't have to leave because it's so expensive. So I think investing in these programs is so important. And we talk about the levy funding. This needs to be on the forefront. Your kids can have jobs that don't require a 4-year degree. You don't have to go to college. You can be hands-on. And you can have that job before you graduate.
Or this is also a pathway towards that 4-year degree.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It's 4-year degree plus.
Absolutely.
And they open up to questions from anybody. We look at our partners.
Yes. So what are some ways that we can help inform people in the community? I'm in a couple of different spaces where folks are wanting to know how they can support Kent schools or, our students. What are some ways that we can easily educate our community about this opportunity and how they can support, even if that is financially or whatever else?
Well, I think going to the Museum of Flight and checking out our map is like an easy, easy thing that I could recommend. Getting engaged and going to some more events that exist. I'll share with you like the calendar of things that exist. But it is a struggle. It's kind of like an easy, like I can say like, oh, just go such and such website. There's been a lot of material that's been created over the years, but nothing as simple as the build submarines thing. I think we have information, for instance, on our own website. But I'll cop to it. Like I think it's facing employers. It's not facing as an audience the average family member, and I think it's something that we should probably build towards and invest in more.
Yeah, and I would add that there is an obvious growth area to be able to get in front of parents, for sure. We do have some groundwork in that area that we need to expand and capitalize on as it pertains to helping them understand what types of things they could support. I have made appearances, guest speaking in a variety of venues. That tends to work well in terms of service clubs and industries and nonprofits, et cetera. The other opportunity is we do have social media accounts for CTE, but when I say CTE, by federal and state law, it's grade 7 through 12. And so a lot of things kick in once a kid gets in the 7th grade. Prior to that, it has to be intentional and strategic, like the STEAM work and the STEM clubs and challenges. And so I guess we would need to think more about how we could partner where parents can engage externally and as well as internally. I would say that my focus has been more on the adult mind shift set, the information gap and closing that with the adults, and a mind shift college and other things, because we have a tendency to do what we're comfortable with and what we were told to do and learn, and so we're making change, but it's not keeping up with the level of change we need to make sure these kids can have a full gamut of opportunities in front of them, but we're getting there. So I think it's a toss-up. I won't say a toss-up. That might not be the right word. I have to try to think about investing in the adult mind shifts and expanding student programming and externally with the community and parents. Right? And so we just have to grow capacity in that work, so we do it as a group.
Well, it seems like our partnership with the city is a great way to really make that foundation so we can move forward with our whole community. And so I, again, just am so appreciative of the partnership that we have with the city of Kent. I don't know about everybody else at the table today, but I am leaving more excited for what we're doing together than I even knew that I had to be excited about. This is fun. So one more call for any questions that we have. Yes.
More of just a statement and a shout out, Carol and Nick and Bill and Michelle. The amount of work that has been accomplished in a very, very short time. It's not been very many years ago that I was at a presentation at the community center in Renton where Boeing was presenting on Core Plus, and there was a giant hole in the map. And I was like, oh, our kids are missing out. And now we go and talk about all the things that our students, and Carol, you use the word deserve, and it is one of the words I use all the time about our community and our students. They deserve this, and the fact that this team, along with our broader stakeholders, have been able to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time and with constrained resources. There are other places around the county and the state that just can write checks for things, and that is not a reality for any of us around this table. So the creativity and the work that goes into this to get us here, we had a chance to go to Olympia and bring this map to our legislators, and it both made me sad that they went, I had no idea. And I was like, oh, but then it also made me very proud that they asked for the map and it's hanging on their wall now. So those are the opportunities. It's in every single space that we are all in to talk about this work. And I think it's this amazing team, but it's also every single one of us, wherever we are at, so.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph. Just one last shout out. Thank you so much. We had such a great opportunity to highlight Kent School District this last week at League of Innovative Schools, Digital Promise, and it was so great to hear the partnership that we had, both from our aerospace technology partners and then from the City of Kent, in that it was such an opportunity that really superintendents from around the nation just were so impressed at what we are doing here as a team. And that is just one of the many ways that our partnership has really been highlighted, not just here locally, but nationally. So it is 8 p.m. I thank everybody for being here and look forward to this meeting again. Have a good evening, and we are adjourned.